Hello everyone and welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're doing good and well. So fairly recently on the channel, on the community page, I put up a poll asking if you wanted to see a Saw films ranked video, and it was a very divided response actually. Some of you said yes, some of you said no, some of you said yeah, we don't really mind either way what you do. And so I'm doing one anyway as kind of having the casting vote, I suppose. But, if you don't like the Saw films, it's absolutely fine. I get that these aren't for everybody. There are strong human torture elements. There's a lot of gore. It's very graphic and violent. It won't be for, certainly won't be for everybody, these kind of films. For me personally, I remember when I saw the first Saw. I was a university student and I remember going to the theatre and coming out thinking I'd not seen anything like this before. It was very low budget, very creepy, and I will forever remember Amanda in the reverse bear trap and just how much that actually terrified me, seeing that and thinking, what if you were in this awful contraption, this awful reverse bear trap? It's just horrifying to think that you've only got, so much time to sort of, do a trap or do a puzzle and get out of there. And that has been the appeal very much for me of the films. I don't want to go too much now into the films because I'm just going to start my ranking. Without any further ado, we're going to get into the films now, from my least favourite to my favourite. And my least favourite Saw film at number 10 is Spiral from the Book of Saw, directed by Darren Lynn Bousman. A divisive film, this one. I see some people that love this one and I see some people that hate it. I don't know if I really hate it, but I definitely don't like this film much at all. I don't think the traps are great. I think my biggest problem with this film though is it doesn't feel like tonally it really knows what it wants to be. It's kind of one part, this kind of cop investigation like drama, but on the other hand it's got comedy elements in it as well, with Chris Rock doing his thing and everything. For me, it doesn't feel much like a Saw film either. I like my Saw films to feel like Saw films, dark, creepy and intense. And just the way this was filmed as well and everything just felt very unlike a Saw film. That's why it's my least favourite. But also I didn't think it was just a great film with the sort of, it felt a bit contrived and just not quite what I would be after from a Saw film. And number 9 is Saw 7, Saw 3D. This one was directed by Kevin Greuter, who directed the most recent film, Saw 10. Saw 7 / Saw 3D has a lot of problems for me. At the very least, though, it has an entertainment value. The traps are quite good. My biggest issues with Saw 7 actually are that I think there's quite a lot of bad acting for me. I don't like the introduction of another apprentice in this film at all. By this point, I'm thoroughly fed up with all the suddenly new apprentices being shown up. I think it's getting boring by this point. And yeah, I find the whole film is kind of not very well done. And for me, it's just beaten Spiral pretty much on the basis I think it's got some cool traps in it. But apart from that, it's one of my least favourites. And number 8, we've got another Darren Lynn Bousman film, actually Saw 4, this one. And this will be probably one of the more controversial films to be this low down. Saw 4, though, I don't really know what it is. I feel like this was where it really went 100% down the torture porn route. And you can tell it was just trap after trap after trap as Officer Rigg is kind of going through his paces. And his test is kind of, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The way he's being tested and what he's being tested for and everything is all a bit confusing. The resolution is also for me a bit daft and over the top with the sort of, the ice blocks and everything. And the whole film, I mean, it has, and again, like most of the Saw films, there is a sort of twisted entertainment value to it. But it's one of my least favourite once again. Very messy film, very convoluted, and just completely over the top. Which feels a bit strange to say that about a Saw movie, I guess, but it's one of my least favourites still. At number 7, now we start to get to the films that I can sort of enjoy at a certain level. I certainly don't dislike this next film. This is Jigsaw, directed by the Spearig brothers. from 2017, from not too long ago. And now, for me, this film has quite a lot of unfulfilled potential. A lot of unfulfilled potential. I think in the characters of Logan and Eleanor, there was much more we could have gotten from this film. For me, I thought Eleanor was a very interesting character as a sort of Jigsaw fangirl. I found that quite interesting, I felt that could have been explored a little bit more than the film did. The traps are pretty interesting here. The film takes on a different atmosphere for me from previous Saw films. There's suddenly this shift into much more glossy camera style stuff going on, I think, and just the way the film's shot generally is a little bit more polished, because obviously it's now, 2017 and not the 2000s anymore. But that was something I noticed with Jigsaw, and therefore it did feel a little bit less like a Saw film. I still felt this had a Saw feel more than, say, Spiral did, but Jigsaw still I'm not that enamoured by. But I think it was actually quite an interesting movie with the characters it had, but they just weren't explored to their full potential for me. At number 6, we have Saw 5, and this is another one of those Saw films that was convoluted, messy, wasn't all in with the Hoffman and Strahm stuff going on in this. For me, again, it's one of these things that where they were stuffing more and more into the Saw franchise, but not to any great effect. I enjoyed the Fatal 5 aspects of this film quite a bit, though. I think that had a certainly kind of the sort of grisly, twisted, entertaining element to it that we see in lots of the Saw films, and it was kind of executed pretty well. For example, the sort of neck collar traps with all 5 of them at sort of near the start of the film, or I think relatively early in the film. I found that quite sort of pretty intense, actually, and despite the bad CGI when the woman is kind of decapitated, I thought that the way she acted was actually really quite excellent. She really, if you were in that situation, you'd be gasping, you'd be absolutely scared out of your skin, and I think she actually did a great job, despite the bad CGI that came after that everybody criticises. That actress's performance, I thought individually, was actually really good at how you would be just before you're about to have your head taken off. At number 5, we move on to number 5 now. I think I didn't say actually who directed Saw 5. That was directed by David Hackle. Saw 3, we go to a Darren Lynn Bousman film again. This is Saw 3. Did I already say that? Apologies if I did. I'm going a bit crazy here. Number 5 is Saw 3. I think Saw 3 is quite good. I think it's decent at the very least as an entry in the Saw franchise. I like the story. For me, it's a bit long and drawn out, and I think would be more effective if it was just trimmed a touch. All the brain surgery stuff, for instance, I thought it went on a bit long. Some of the Jeff moments were a bit long and drawn out too. But I liked the Jeff storyline and how it sort of twins with the the sort of Amanda and John stuff as well, with his wife, and that to me actually is pretty interesting stuff in it, and there is suspense. Saw 3, you do feel the suspense. Saw 3 has arguably the most brutal traps in the whole franchise. For Saw 3, you need a strong stomach. I can tell you that. Yeah, you need a strong stomach for Saw 3, is all I'm going to say, if you haven't seen that one. At number 4, we have Saw 6, a film directed by Kevin Greutert. I like Saw 6 personally. I think it's a pretty good Saw film. I thought it was able to offer something a bit different than the other Saw films had to that point, where, yes, there were still a lot of traps, and it was still kind of about the traps, let's be honest, but the element of William Eastman in this, with the insurance stuff and the choices that he was making for people's, having to choose between people's lives, gave this an extra amount of intensity. For me, the thing I find myself drawn to a lot in the Saw films is when they're really intense. But when you've got just enough investment, when it's giving you just enough character investment to feel something in the film, and you can feel more of the drama, more of the intensity, because they've gotten you a bit more invested in what's going on. And I think the Eastman stuff with the whole insurance decision making that he was making, the bad decision making in a lot of cases, and the way that is shown up in the different traps is very, very clever here. So I do like Saw 6 mostly for that reason. Don't care much for the Hoffman stuff in this film, but I do like Saw 6 otherwise. Number 3, I'm going for perhaps a shock that this is just at number 3, but this is the original Saw film. Despite the impact it made on me, despite the impression it made on me over time, I'm not quite as into Saw, the original film. I do think it's a pretty decent film. I do have issues with the acting not being terribly good in parts of this movie, but the low budget, the story's good, the twist is excellent. Perhaps still the best Saw twist of all of them. It's the original and it's one of the best. I will not say any less than that. So that's the original film, directed by James Wan, of course. Coming in at number 2 now, we have Saw X, Saw 10, and it's this high. Yes, it's this high on my list. I saw it recently, and I can't remember enjoying a Saw film as much as this as my number 1 choice, which I'm about to talk about. But at number 2 is Saw 10, Saw X. There are a lot of reasons why this is so high up. One is, enjoyment level, I've already mentioned. I liked that this film spent time at the beginning to, develop a story with John Kramer, giving Tobin Bell lots of screen time, which, as a fantastic actor, he needs. And because of that, you actually get more invested in Jigsaw in this film. But also the team of con artists that treat him, or supposedly treat him, for his cancer. I think there's a bit of character development there. Now, we don't see that in a lot of the other Saw films. You just tend to see people straight away in their traps. You don't see much of them before they're in their traps. And that loses the effectiveness of the traps, for me. That's just my opinion. Saw 10 gives them a bit of time. It doesn't give them lots of time. And I won't argue there's loads of character development in those villains, because there isn't really, or in those people. But because there is, just gives it, with Gabriella, for example, and her trap, gives you more investment in them. This trap, which had, I think it was Valentina in, there was the brain surgery one, which was grotesque. But the one that I found really nasty was Valentina's. Just absolutely, really brutal. Almost at the level of Timothy Young in Saw 3. Really brutal trap. Honestly, that had me in the cinema kind of wincing as I was watching that one. That was some really gruesome stuff. Again, a film which requires a strong stomach. But as I say, I like this film more for all the reasons I've already stated. Saw 10 comes in at number 2, which leaves number 1. I've given the game away about this a few times, so this number 1 choice isn't going to be a surprise for any followers or subscribers of my channel. Saw 2. I love Saw 2. I love the Eric Matthews story thread in this. I like the way the film's directed. I love the set piece. I think there's, as I was saying with Saw 10, there's just enough character development here to get you a bit more invested in the characters involved in the set piece of the film, in this place, in this house, where you've got all these traps waiting for these people. I think there's more character exploration, as I say. Good twist in this one, and this has that intensity and suspense that I also like to have in my Saw films, that I think, is missing from the films I've put at the bottom of this list. For me, intensity and suspense is important in Saw movies. I don't get that intensity or suspense from Spiral. I don't get it from Saw 7 much. And I don't get it much from the likes of Jigsaw or Saw 4. But I do get intensity and suspense in Saw 2, a lot of it. And I get it in Saw 10. I get it in the original film. I get it a bit, not so much in Saw 6 perhaps, but... That's why those top 3 films are my top 3 films. That's why Saw 2 and Saw 10 are my favourites, because I felt intensity and I felt suspense the most, I think, out of all the films. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this. I appreciate this is a very divisive franchise, not for everyone. As I say, it's super gory, but it is, as I say, I can take or leave some Saw stuff. The films I like, I do really like. And that's about all I have to say on this one. We have got, if you're if you like the horror part of the Green Man channel, there's a big video coming up soon, which is a Final Girls tier list, and it's deliberately going to be on Friday the 13th. So I'll see you maybe on Friday the 13th for that video. Otherwise, it's bye for now.